Hey everybody, welcome back and happy Halloween! Halloween is actually my favorite holiday, even though I am not doing anything this year again. It's okay. We're gonna binge watch Over the Garden Wall, so I'm very excited for that. If you haven't seen Over the Garden Wall and you like cute yet horrifying cartoons, would recommend it. Anyways, hi, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Gretchen and this is Cover Art, a series where I talk about video games I'm currently playing while doing my makeup at the same time. Normally my makeup is at least a little bit inspired by the video game I'm talking about. I'm going to leave all of my makeup and tools in the description below if that's something that you're interested in. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this week. Okay, so today I thought we would talk about something spooky, the spooky game. What with it being spooky season. I wanted to tell you guys about a Japanese horror survival series known as Fatal Frame. I know, maybe you thought I was gonna say like Resident Evil or Silent Hill or something. Nope. Fatal Frame. It's not as well known as those other two titles that I just mentioned, but I think they're fun games regardless. So Fatal Frame is also known as Zero or Project Zero, depending on where you live in the world. They started coming out, the first one was in 2001, so you know it's like that early stuff. Is that retro now? I have no idea. I don't know. There are a total of 6 games that have been released. Not all of them have been released in the US or the UK, but I think in Japan there's at least 6, not including remakes or remasters, those kind of things. So I'm mainly going to talk about the first game because it's the one I own and it's the one I've played. I haven't beaten it. I'll kind of get into why later. But I don't know, I got it when I was in high school, so like circa, I don't know, when was that? 2011 or so like 10 years after the game came out. And I found a copy at a used game store for the Xbox, even though they were originally released on PlayStation. And I had heard about it from, I don't know, some YouTuber. I don't think streaming was quite there yet. I don't think Twitch was even Twitch at the time. It might have still been Justin TV. I don't remember. But I saw a YouTuber playing it and just like getting himself scared. You know, the type that's like easily spooked, or at least acts easily spooked. And I thought, okay, yeah, that looks rad. Let's do it. And I traded in, because I was a teenager, I traded in like a ton of stuff that I wasn't using anymore, like CDs and DVDs and other games that I didn't really care for, just to buy this one dang game because it was so hard to find. But anyways, so we're going to talk about the first Fatal Frame, which is just titled Fatal Frame. So the first Fatal Frame is set in 1986 and it follows siblings Miyu and Mafuyu Hinasaki. They are both siblings that have kind of always had a sixth sense ability. They kind of always have just been open to, supernatural or unexplained things. So the game starts with Mafuyu actually entering an old abandoned mansion that is kind of locally known to be haunted. Not a place the locals go. He is visiting this mansion known as Himuro Mansion because his tutor or like mentor named Takamine has gone in and he ain't come out. So Mafuyu is like, well, I know that Takamine, oh boy, that's gonna happen a lot. I do speak a little Japanese, and I am so sorry, just in advance. So anyways, he knows that Takamine and his assistants went into the mansion for some sort of like, I don't know if it was like material or if it was like for inspiration, that kind of thing. Like if, horror writers go to haunted places to write their works. I think it was something along those lines because Takamine is a folklorist. So he does a lot of writing and a lot of Japanese lore is the idea. But he went in with his assistants. He ain't coming out. So Mafuyu's like, well, I guess I'll go check it out because I haven't heard from them in like weeks and yeah, it's weird. So lo and behold, Mafuyu also never comes out of the mansion. So now Miyu's like, yo, bro, where'd you go? And also heads to Himuro Mansion to figure out what's going on because she knew that her brother said, I'm heading there, figure out what happened to my mentor and sensei or whatever you want to call him. And yeah, so that's where I'm going. So he doesn't come back either. Miyu's like, well, what the heck? People getting lost in here. Well, obviously the rational thing to do is to also go. Because, you know, when 4 people get lost in a haunted mansion, that's just what you do. So you primarily are playing the game as Miyu, trying to figure out what happened to her brother, and along the way you find out what happened to Takamine and his assistants that went with him. Now bear with me with this eyeliner because I've never done it before and we're going to see how it goes. So welcome to Unprofessional YouTube. So Miyu's gone into the mansion. She is searching for Mafuyu and consequently comes across a pretty awful situation that occurred in this mansion, in Himuro Mansion. You find out not only about the folklorist and his assistants, but you also find out about the terrible tragedy that struck the mansion and what happened to its residents, and the awful ritual that they actually used to perform, and how it went horribly wrong the final time. I think that went okay for the first time ever doing it. Literally my first time ever doing it. Can you tell I don't practice before I do these videos? I can. So Miyu comes to learn that there is a ritual known as the Strangling Ritual that has been taking place in the mansion and performed by its residents for honestly who knows how long. Basically what happens in the Strangling Ritual is that pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's not nice. It is a horror game. A shrine maiden is chosen every year, something along those lines, but every so often there's a shrine maiden that's chosen, someone, you know, pure or untainted or whatever, however you want to call it, that is chosen to participate in this ritual, and basically she's sacrificed in a pretty gruesome way. The ropes that are used to sacrifice and bind her and strangle her are then taken to a part of the mansion underground known as the Hellgate, and they are used to hold back an entity known as the Malice. Now, if this isn't done, the Malice will escape the Hellgate and just let loose everywhere. Well, you learn that the final time that the ritual was supposed to take place didn't work out the way it's normally supposed to. So, you know, the Malice did escape the Hellgate and pretty much just wrecked the entire mansion. I mean, it got out and it not only killed everyone in the mansion, it also trapped their souls there for all eternity. So essentially, you as Miyu are exploring a haunted mansion filled with ghosts that have been trapped and are also haunted by the dark past that has unfolded at Himuro Mansion. Because, you know, it's not like... that's not a good vibe. Human sacrifice. Now, kind of similarly to Resident Evil and maybe Silent Hill, I'm honestly not very familiar with that franchise, you do have a way to fight back, albeit it is kind of clunky. I mean, it is a game that came out in 2001, so it's aged, but not quite like a fine wine. When you first enter the mansion as Miyu, you actually find something on the floor that is like this old camera. I think they refer to it as a camera obscura, even though it's not a camera obscura. Boy, I can't talk in these videos. I'm very good at it. But Miyu finds this camera on the floor. She's like, I recognize this camera, I think. Oh my god, what have I done? Okay, I have to clean that up. And basically it is a camera imbued with spiritual energy, and it's your main source of like fighting back. Really, it's your only source. I shouldn't say main. I mean, you have a flashlight, but like, what's a flashlight gonna do at an angry beheaded ghost that's coming at you? Nothing. Good, you can see it a little bit better. Great. I'm gonna go clean this up real quick. This is a mess. Okay, we're back. We've gotten our lives sorted and we're ready to continue. So anyways, you get a camera. It's imbued with spiritual energy or power, whatever you want to call it. And it basically helps you fight back against spirits. So you're literally taking pictures of spirits until they finally disintegrate or go away, you know, get off your ass. You'll see similar elements like Resident Evil in Fatal Frame games because there's a lot of like puzzle solving that goes on, a lot of things you have to do to unlock different areas or key items. You do pick up key items, you pick up points from the spirits that you exorcise or get rid of. Those points can then be spent to bolster the camera or level it up basically, and just make it better and easier as you go, because as you go, things are going to get a lot harder, as is the case with most things like this. Because ultimately, as Miyu, you're trying to figure out what happened to your brother and, you know, what happened in the mansion. But you do find that there is like one main spirit that's kind of like your final boss, known as Kirie. She was the final sacrifice and the one that went horribly wrong. So she's kind of the main baddie circling the mansion, but you don't ever really interact with her that much. Not until the end. More of your interactions with her at the beginning are through cutscenes, or if you get flashbacks to certain memories, because again, the siblings both have this sort of like sixth sense ability that's going on, so they kind of see what happened in the mansion and they get flashbacks of what occurred. The game separates itself into different chapters that they refer to as nights. Honestly, I don't think Miyu's actually in there for several nights. She could be. I suppose maybe she is. I don't know. You don't have to worry about her eating or anything like that, so she pretty much just has a health bar, and you just have to make sure that the ghosties don't grab her too much, because they'll just come and shake her a bit. And she'll yell and scream, you know, as one would probably do when being confronted by a ghost or evil spirit, whatever. There are different bosses that get progressively harder throughout the game. You fight the final bosses in each night to unlock the next one until you finally reach Kirie. It's a very Resident Evil-like setup in that you are following your character in a 3D space and you do not have control over the camera angles. Really, all you have control over is Miyu, the direction she's looking in, where she's pointing her camera or flashlight, and how fast she's running, or I say running, but it's like a walk. It's like one of those little walk runs. You know what I mean when you see it. But like the very Japanese schoolgirl, like faint, dainty run, or just walk. You just walk around if you want, I guess, but I'm always running. So yeah, the camera angles will rotate. You don't have any control over it when you enter a room. And usually in this game, there are several camera angles within an area, and it can get very confusing because the controls aren't exactly the best. I'll just say it. They're not great. They're very stiff. They're very clunky and old. They did not age well. So a lot of the times I'll find myself running around as Miyu, and then I'll have double backed because the camera angle will change, but I haven't changed the way I'm controlling Miyu yet, so she'll end up walking backwards, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's weird. It's old and clunky. The control scheme when you're controlling the camera is also like, what's the word for it? It's like flipped or reverse control schemes. So walking around and then getting the camera out to fight something can be really disorienting. And it takes a lot of getting used to. But you know, it is possible to get used to it. I mean, I haven't beaten the game yet, but I have to assume it's possible. The voice acting is also pretty stale. It's pretty early stuff, so it's nothing like groundbreaking. But I did have fun with the puzzles. I had fun, for the most part, fighting the ghosts. They have their own kind of like pattern and way of attacking. You'll often see several ghosts of the same kind coming back, and they'll keep their patterns. They might just get stronger as the game progresses. The only ghosts that you can fully exercise are the bosses, you know, whatever the focus is for that night or chapter. The other ones are pretty much just like ads that come at you if you're lingering in an area too long, or if you're just lost, they'll just get you. As far as how scary it is goes, I was honestly more frustrated by the control scheme than I was by the ghosts of the mansion trying to come at me. I'd often find myself screaming obscenities at said entities because they're just being an inconvenience and not letting me pick up that item or pick up that key thing that I need, or I don't have much health and they're in my way. Because I was more in it for the story and the just progression, I guess, than I am for sitting there and fighting ghosts with the camera, because honestly it's not great. It's not a great control scheme, if I haven't made that abundantly clear already. I think some people might still find it to be actually pretty scary. I think the content itself is actually really gruesome. I mean, you're coming in and finding out about this strangling ritual, this Hellgate, this malice entity thing. But the game itself, I think, now is pretty campy. I was never a person to enjoy, you know, the cheap thrill of the jump scare. I've never been to a haunted house. I don't care to go to one. Personally, that's just not my dig. If that's something you're into, good for you. I just can't do it. So I always thought of myself as kind of a scaredy cat for that reason. But really now that I'm, you know, older or whatever, and playing these games, I'm like, it's actually not that bad. And maybe it's just because of the fact that it didn't age gracefully, and that the control schemes aren't good. But I think it's more campy than anything else in the end. Pretty stereotypical. But again, it was made in 2001, so it's pretty early. It's just, I've been flooded with so much since then that, you know, this doesn't particularly scare me. But it could be scary to some. Some people do find it scary. And the story in itself is horrible. It's horrifying to think about the fact that, like, every so often to appease this awful demon thing called the Malice, they'd have to take a young girl and sacrifice her by basically quartering them. Like taking rope and binding it to the neck, to the wrists and the ankles, and then just killing someone that way to appease this thing so it wouldn't escape. Yeah, that's no good. That's pretty spooky. But overall, it does make me laugh more than it scares me. But, you know, take that with a grain of salt because I'm dead inside. I will say I did think the boss fights were actually pretty fun because they're all pretty different. Each night focuses on a different aspect to the story. It's not just the residents or, you know, the people that came in right before Miyu did, meaning her brother and the folklorist, Takamine. There was also a family that you learned about that lived in the mansion prior. You know, the father figure in this family was also kind of a folklorist type and wanted to live there to discover the secrets of the mansion. Didn't work out for him, I'll tell you that right now. Was not successful in that endeavor. But you find out about them, about the siblings' connection to the mansion because they do have one. And I thought one thing that was kind of cool about the game is that as you learn things, there is like a journal that you can reference. There are tapes of what was left behind by people who have come in to explore the mansion, and documents left behind regarding the Strangling Ritual, the Hellgate, the entity known as the Malice. I don't know why I keep saying it like that, the Malice. And yeah, there's a lot of good lore that you can keep recorded in your journal. You can also keep images that you've taken with the camera. One of the more noteworthy aspects to the game is that sometimes you have to take pictures with the camera to unlock certain areas. It's not just used to fight ghosts. You also use it to disintegrate seals that have been placed on certain rooms that you need to get into. Again, I'm doing something new with my lips, so if I don't like it, we're gonna erase it. I would say overall, it is a fun game. It's definitely kind of more like a classic feel than anything else. Yeah, I was not into what I did, so we went ahead and redid that with the lips. So I do think the game series has done pretty well for itself, you know, I mean, 6 games. Even if it hasn't all been released in the US, it's still pretty good. They had, the newest one was called Maiden of Blackwater, I believe, and they are re-releasing that. It was released initially on the Wii, and I believe it's coming to Switch soon. So that's kind of exciting. All of the games are, you know, in the same universe, so to speak. They all kind of connect to each other, but very loosely in a big picture kind of overview of, like, you know, the person from the first game is related to, or there's relation to someone in the third game. You know, that kind of general thing. The games definitely aren't as popular as the Silent Hill and Resident Evil games, but I still think they're fun. I still think they have some good value to them, and it's not like some of those Resident Evil games have aged particularly well either, although they are more cult classic sort of games. So yeah, that is Fatal Frame. That's kind of a generalization of the series in a nutshell. There's some relation between all the games. You've always got a camera that you're using to exorcise the ghosts, and you're always learning about some terrible tragedy that has befallen some mansion, village, family, something of that nature. I'd say if it's something you can pick up relatively cheap, it's worth a shot. They're pretty fun. I think they're interesting. And nowadays I kind of just laugh more than I get scared, so either way you'll find some value to it, I think. Well, thank you for joining me today and listening to me talk about a campy, spooky horror game. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night or whatever comes next for you. Happy Halloween. Stay safe out there. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye. 兄はとても優しい人でした。